And right enough, we went to Auckland for Christmas. There was an exhibition in Auckland. And when we got in Auckland, if you please, the place was that packed with people that you had not a show to get either a place to sleep in or to board, or not a thing. The first night we camped in a hotel on the top end of a stairs. The mistress put some blankets down and we were sleeping there. And the next day, somebody gave us a tip. He said, you go out a couple of miles in the country, there is a place where you can get a bedroom. So we went out, had a look, and sure enough, we did have a bedroom. We paid a week's board in advance. And so we were staying the Christmas in Auckland, having a jolly good time, spending a bit of our money. And my mate was a bit of a racing fin. He said, we'll go to the races. And I've never been to the races in all my life. But the first day going to the races, I lost him, and I don't know what happened with him. So I went to the races on my own. And before we left Raurimo, there was a chappie there, and he said, when you go to Auckland, go to the races, and a certain race at about 11 o'clock in the forenoon, he said, back an horse name said Solo, Sir Solo. He said, it's a sure winner. Well, he says, put a fiver on for me. I says, well, give us the fiver. Oh, he says, I'll give it to you when you come back. I said, oh, that's all very well. Supposing the horse lose or fall over or something like that, where will I be with my fiver? Oh, I said, nothing doing, mate. So anyway, I thought about this here Sir Solo, and I lost my mate and tried to find my way to the race course. And eventually I asked several people. He said, follow the crowd and you'll get there. Eventually I got in a crowded tramcar, and the tramcar stopped in front of the racecourse gate. And I went in, and going through the gate, there was a small office there, and you could step on a scale for a shilling. They took your weight, your measurement, and told your age, and printed it all on a card and gave it to you. And everything was correct. With my age was about 2 days out. That's all. So I got onto the race course, and as soon as I got on the course, I heard people singing out on top of their voices, Sir Solo, Sir Solo. And the race was being run. And I said, oh, well, I'm too late anyway. And Sir Solo came in and only paid £1.17 for a pound. So I said, just as well I didn't invest a fiver on it. I wouldn't get nothing back. Got 17 6 for a quid. And then afterwards, there were boys running around selling race cards, and I bought one, and I inquired which was the next race, and I looked on it and studied the horses from top to bottom. There was about 8 horses running in that race, and there was one horse called Monema. So I fancied the name. I didn't know a racehorse from a cow, but I fancied the name, and I thought I'll put a quid on it, just to be a sport. So eventually I got to where the tickets were sold, and there was a big queue of crowd pushing, trying to get to the opening. And when I got there, I puts a quid on the counter, and I says, 1, please. And he gives me a ticket and 10 shillings change. Well, I was a silly mug. I should have said, give us a quid ticket. But I apparently went in a 10-bob tote, and he gave me a 10-shilling ticket and a 10-shilling change. And I was sort of rather wild with myself, and I got out as quick as I could and got to the other end of the queue. And by the time I was halfway to the pigeonhole, it went down with a bang. It was all sold. The race was getting ready to run. And so I had to be satisfied with 10 shillings on it. And I was wandering around. I didn't know where the horses was starting, but anyway, I wandered around until all of a sudden they said, they are off, and the race started. And, after the race, Monema come in second. And the first didn't pay very much, something like £2 for the pound, but the second horse paid £4.17 6. And I was whipping the cot. If I had the whole quid on, I would have been set for the day. But I only had 10 shillings on. But however, I was satisfied with it, and I spent the rest of the day there wandering around. And in the evening, when I would go home, I meets my copper. I said, "Where was you?" "Oh," he says, "I was on the races." I said, "I didn't have a clue where you was. I never saw you." "Well," I said, "I never saw you where you should be. But you must have been wandering around in the wrong places always." Because I was a real greenhorn of the races. I didn't know what was what. So we went home, and next day he says, "We go to the races again." And so there was one race run with only 3 horses, one a great big horse and 2 smaller ones. And he said, "So we'll back the big one, that's sure to win." And of course, we put a quid on each. And the race went away, and of course, the big horse came in galloping first. But it was a great favorite, and that much over back that it paid just 17 and 6 for your quid. So I thought to myself, that's a great outfit to go to races like this. So we backed 1 or 2 more horses, finished the day, and of course we were out of pocket in the finish for sure. We went home, and I said, "I'm finished for the racing. I'm not going to waste my money like this. We'll have a look round after the holidays is over. We'll buy a few 1.25-inch augers to go back to the job and make some money." Well, for those stone drives, they paid 5 shillings a foot. And the jokers that was doing this drive, they were punching the holes with what they call a jumper. It was about 2 foot long chisel with a flat point on the end. And they started the hole by hitting the other end with a fairly heavy hand hammer. And so they were punching and pouring drop of water in to carry out the dust and until they got to the bottom of the hole, which took about a couple of hours to get down. And we set to work and fixed a couple of those augers up the way I wanted. And we cleaned up the face of the tunnel and chipped in with a pick, where the hole had to go. And we started boring these holes, and you could bore the length of the auger, which was 2 foot long, in about 5 minutes if you wanted. It was easy going. And we bored about 7 holes in the face, 1 in the top, then 2 further down, and then 3, and then 2, and then 2 down near the bottom, and charging them all with about a plug and a half of jelly each, and cutting the fuses the same length, because my mate was expert on that, and I left it all to him. And then he cut little slices of a plug of jelly and struck a match to it, lit it, and then put all the points of the fuses together and stuck that burning bit of gelignite onto the end, and all the fuses jumped off in an instant. And then, of course, we rushed away. We didn't leave the fuses very long, just about 2 feet. And I think it takes about a foot a minute to burn. And in 2 minutes' time, the whole lot went off, and the whole front was blasted off, about 3-4 feet deep. And we just cleaned the front up and fired it overboard in the water at the bottom of the creek, and bored new holes and let off another charge. And in a week we were down about 20 feet into the hillside. But later on, if you please, you couldn't go in after the explosion went off. You had to sit for about half an hour outside. If you went in too quick, the fumes would make your headache, and you lose all senses and get giddy. And we were suffering with headaches. So the thing didn't go as fast as we intended to, but all the same, we made rather too much money. The foreman came out and said, "You boys are doing the job too quick." He said, "If you go back in town and go to the office to demand your money," he said, "they wouldn't pay out." And the next the job, they would cut you down because they reckon you're making the money too easy. So he says, I tell you what you do. You take so much money and leave the rest in the public works, and then call for it later until that the job is finished then, and then you wouldn't undercut anybody else. But anyway, we never went back on another job. It started raining there. It was in the King country, and it started raining, and nearly every day, and all got fed up. So eventually, when we got the job through, we sold the gear on the job to somebody else, and we walked out. And we walked back to Raurimo, and I said, "Oh, I had the bush. I'm going back to sea." Or at least I said, he says to me, "Why don't you try the coal mines on the west coast?" I said, "All right, I'll give him a try." So we went down back to Wellington, and I took a little steamer down to Westport, and I had to take a train for a little way to a little place called Waimangaroa. And from there we had to go uphill for about a mile and a half or so, up a steep track up the hill, up to a place called Denniston. And so that was all right. And when I was on the station, there was several women and others that were on the train from Wellington, or on the ship rather. And there was a young woman, and she had rather a large swag, and she says to me, "Are you going up the hill to Denniston?" I said, "Yes." Well, so she says to me, "Would I mind to give her a hand to carry her swag up?" Oh, I said, "Willingly." I says, "I got hardly anything to carry myself." And we walked off up the hill, and walking up, she started to tell me that she lives up in Denniston, and she's the publican's daughter there that runs the pub up there. Oh, I says, "Oh, that's grand, so I will be able to have a room in your pub." Oh, she says, "Sure thing." So when we got home, there was tea ready for us waiting, and I had a room, and next day I had a bit of holiday, and day after I had a look round the different offices and the different coal mines, and I went into one office and I offered my services, and he asked me whether I worked in the mines before. I said, "No, I haven't," but I said, "I've shoveled a lot of your coal in the fire on the ships." "Oh, well," he says, "we'll give you a try." And I took a job, and had about 2 miles to walk before you come to the entrance of the mine. And then instead of lowering you down with like they do in England in some mines with a kind of a bird cage or something, you had to walk down and walk gradually downhill for a good distance until you come to the face of the coal where they were working. And I had my lunch with me, and they gave me quite a large canister full of sweet tea. She said, the publican's wife said, "You get very hungry in the mines if you haven't been there before, or thirsty. You want to drink a lot." And I spent the first day, and sure enough, she was true. I was as thirsty as you could be. And I was glad when it came evening. We walked out again. I had to walk these 2 miles home, and had a good wash and tea, and I went back next morning, and every morning when you walked to the mines, it was a sort of fine misty rain, not very cold, but you got as wet as a shag. You had to wear oilskin every morning. And I worked for a fortnight, and I thought, "Oh, darn it, I'd sooner go to sea." And I gave a fortnight's notice. So I worked altogether a month in the mine, and I finished up. I went back to Waimangaroa, took the train to Westport, and there was the Arahura leaving Westport for Wellington. And I got aboard the ship to go to Wellington. And in the evening, they're walking on the deck, I runs in the second engineer that I was shipmates with on the Mararoa. When he spotted me, he says, "Hello, Bob, what are you doing here?" Oh, I said, "I'm going back to town and I'm going back to sea again." I says, "I don't like neither the bush nor the mines." So he said, "Well, we got a job here in this very ship. I want a dunkerman." And he said, "We'll be in early in the morning in town." And he said, "You come around about 10 o'clock and sign on and get to work straight away." So I thought, oh, well, I'm in luck's way. So I did that, and I got the job as a dunkerman. You know, he's a joker that when the ship is to sea, he's got to grease the engines. And when in port, you got to look after a donkey boiler to keep steam for the winches, for hoisting in cargo and discharging and one thing or another. And you work a lot of overtime. And he says the wages is £12 a month and overtime. Oh, I said, by Joe, I wouldn't be very long before I would be rich. So I was on the Arahura for about 6 months or so, and I was doing very well. And then one day they notify me that they are going for a yearly overhaul in the dry dock. But they said to me if I like, I could work by, but I couldn't sleep aboard. I had to go ashore to sleep. So I said, all right, I'll work by. And I kept on. They were in there for about 3 weeks in the dry dock. And when they were ready, they went to sea again, and I was up on my regular routine. And trips we made was every Thursday morning we left Wellington for Picton, discharging some cargo, and then back to Wellington. And then on the Saturday night we left Wellington for Picton, and then from Picton, after about 2 hours, we sailed for Nelson, where we arrived early in the morning.